Hi there. If you clicked on this video, that can only mean one thing. You want to time travel. Well, luckily I can show you how, but you'll need to follow my instructions very carefully, as if you don't, then the universe itself will probably So first, we'll need to figure out where a good place to time travel would actually be, which is actually pretty difficult. In order to prevent the universe from being destroyed, we'll need a closed-off system that's separate from the outside world. Luckily, in this simulated scenario, that place is my next door neighbor. Pretty convenient, I know, but that's probably the only convenient thing that time travel will present us with here, as once you walk inside you won't be met with a time machine, but instead an activation module that when clicked will open up time machines throughout this entire facility. Oh, and the entire place is now exploding, and also the front door is completely blocked off. So we're stuck here until we figure out a way to escape this exploding place. In this situation, you might think that I should just travel back in time to before the facility was created, thus escaping the situation while also bringing along a fancy souvenir to time travel with, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, is what I would say if I wanted the entire universe to. In reality, this time machine can only bring us back to the exact point that this mechanism was activated. You know, the one that started the explosion of the entire facility? Basically, we're on a time limit of however long the explosion takes to reach us each time we enter one of these machines, and although that might sound bad, it also helps us to prevent paradoxes that will cause the universe to explode. Also, yes, I will stop with the universe exploding bit, at least for now. As we move through the next few rooms, we will begin to notice that we are on a very strict timer, the rooms exploding nearly as fast as we can get through them, and that isn't an issue until we encounter a room that we can't get through due to its many branching paths and only one correct path. Kind of like a maze, but you die if you can't figure it out quickly enough, and so without knowing the room layout beforehand, we inevitably die. But we can actually reverse the clock here, which means that instead of being in the timeline where you chose to explore the wrong rooms, you are now in the timeline in which you chose the correct path in the first place. Now, in this simulation, it seems as if you knew the room layouts in this timeline, but in reality, you don't. You just made better decisions than the you that died for whatever reason, whether that be luck or pure skill. Moving forward, you encounter a room that will help immensely, as after passing through it, you will now have the ability to see your past selves in the room you moved through previously. Well, they can't see you, at least not yet, but we'll get there in a minute. For now, you just have to worry about not exploding, and eventually you reach a new mechanism that is similar to the one that was at the center of the facility. Is this it? Could you escape the facility with this? Of course not. Well, the next room doesn't seem too bad. At the very least, nothing seems to be immediately exploding, but that doesn't mean that it won't eventually explode. There's one very simple puzzle where you pick up an item and place it on a button, and in the next room you see another button, which you decide to press on your way past, and upon going through the time machine at the top of the room, you encounter a door, one that was connected to the button from the previous room, and when your past self presses the button, the door opens. This is where the time travel shenanigans truly start to begin, as the next few puzzles also require you to use your past self in unique ways to ensure that the you in the present will be able to reach the end, even requiring you to pick up items and carry them through the time machines. This goes rather smoothly at first, as only a few of your alternate timeline selves die. However, the rooms get more and more difficult as you get further into the facility. For instance, the final puzzle in this section that has 4 doors that you have to open for the future you, while also making sure that the doors are open in the correct order at the correct times. This requires advanced time management to pull off, as the rooms are still exploding even if it is slower than in the center of the facility, but after enough trial and error, you manage to get it working. As I was saying, after enough trial and error, you manage to get it working in order to get your present self through to the end, and now you can go to another one of these mechanisms that only activates after you've completed a certain amount of rooms. And, despite your hopes, this one did not in fact bring you outside the facility, but that's fine because these next rooms don't look too complex. Oh, right. Let me explain paradoxes. See, originally you went through this room and didn't see anyone on the other side of these glass panels, but if you try to get across this room after exiting the time machine, things become slightly problematic, as that is you in the past, but you in the past didn't see the now present you originally. If you just wait until your past self has passed these curtains before crossing, then past you will never see present you, and the universe won't explode. The next few rooms include button presses to open a door, while also making you avoid buttons to prevent a paradox. Then the items to put on the buttons are reintroduced, and believe it or not, these things make this entire ordeal a lot more difficult, as these things can cause paradoxes too. For example, in this room you need this item to press down this button, but if you pick it up after going through the time machine and your past self sees that it's missing, then... So instead you need to pick this up before going in the time machine, but after pressing down the button with your past self. And after preventing paradoxes with your past self and solving enough rooms to use the next mechanism, you of course are greeted with more puzzles, but with a new mechanic in these invisibility mushrooms. These are useful for your future self, as not only are you able to be in the line of sight of your past self, but the invisibility also persists through time traveling with these machines. However, when stepping upon these blue tiles, you will lose the invisibility effect, so you do have to be careful throughout the next few rooms to not accidentally do that. Also, just like the items, you do have to be careful not to create a paradox where you see the mushroom in the past and then accidentally eat it in the future. But apart from that, you should be fine. Note to self, the invisibility cannot be used to hide items you carry. After a few more difficult rooms requiring you to keep buttons pressed down and playing a game of Ring Around the Rosie with your past self, you arrive at yet another mechanism, and just like every other time, this one did not bring you outside the facility. Instead, it introduces you to this pink goo, which when inside keeps time from moving outside while also keeping yourself concealed from your past self. This, in conjunction with the invisibility mushroom, causes these rooms to be some of the more simple ones. You, once again, have the opportunity to play Ring Around the Rosie with yourself twice, and also figure out that using a time machine can create a paradox with your past self if they saw that time machine originally. And after all that, another mechanism, and another group of rooms, and another new mechanic. Actually, this one isn't that bad. The green mushroom causes vivid hallucinations to you if you eat it, and that lets your future self pull off a lot of things that it otherwise couldn't. For example, you can carry objects in front of your past self, bump into them and make them go down a separate path, make them pick up items and bring them to you, and also it's nearly impossible for a paradox to actually be created while in this state. But, of course, these blue tiles make a return, meaning that they have to return to the exact state they were in during the original timeline if they run into one of these. And also, if they don't make it to the time machine, that also creates a paradox. There's some really interesting puzzles here, like this one where you have to choose whether you want the blue mushroom or the green one while also pressing down a button. This one that makes you choose between a blue or green mushroom while holding down a button. The next one where you choose between a blue... Okay, I think I'm seeing a slight trend here. There are a lot of rooms that make you use the blue and green mushrooms while holding down buttons, but there were also some interesting rooms like this one where you make your past self grab this item to put on the switch, or another one where your past self has to realign themselves, otherwise they would be out of sync in this room. After completing enough rooms with the green mushroom, you're brought to, yeah, another one of these mechanisms, but this in reality is the last one that you'll see. Kind of. Anyways, the new mechanic is the red mushroom, which allows you to push objects all the way across the room from you, and if the object is backed up against a corner, it will go as far behind you as it can. This can be useful to intoxicate your past self with a green mushroom or push items onto buttons. However, it can also cause some interesting situations like in this room where the objective is to get the key all the way back to your future self without your past self realizing that it's way out of sync with where it should be. And also the exact same thing, but more difficult this time. These rooms get extremely difficult extremely quickly, as it's easy to die from the explosions, accidentally send the wrong object the wrong way, or most common of all. Anyways, after the delicate balance of those levels, there's... Okay, last time I said last mechanism, but this time I mean it because these puzzles are all part of the original few rooms that started this time travel stuff, and the final mechanic is you. At this point, you've already been through all these rooms at least once before, but the past you wasn't aware that there were hidden passageways in the walls or that the button you passed by here would actually be necessary for your future self to escape out this way. In fact, when you entered this facility, you had no idea that your future self was there, that they were listening, were watching, were secretly manipulating every single action that you took so that you'd be able to get out of here and eventually push a green mushroom to confuse your past self and then push them through the original time machine, all so that you could go through this last time machine and escape the facility, completing the loop and teaching you how to correctly quickly time travel. At least, that's one way that this can turn out. Remember how there was a room requirement originally? Well, if you only did as many rooms as needed, then the previous outcome is all that would happen. But if you went one step beyond, completing every puzzle in every room, then the ending could turn out slightly differently. Remember how I said that was the last mechanism for real? Well, I lied, because the real last mechanism is the first mechanism, the one you hit originally that kicked this entire thing off, but it can only be activated after you've completed every room in the facility. In this room, you're able to access it and get transported to another room, one that allows you to truly escape from here and be free from the loop. Not only escaping the facility that tormented you all this time, but truly leaving it behind. The explosions and the paradoxes no longer able to affect you. And that is preventing time paradoxes in a nutshell. Oh, that's strange. There's still 4 minutes left in the video. Wonder why that is. Something that I want to talk about that isn't actually present in this game, which is time traveling to the future. Now, as there are no examples of time traveling to the future in this game, I'm going to create my own example using the game as a basis. After you unlock the mechanism at the center of the facility, you ordinarily would escape using this spaceship, but in this example it first teleports you to a final subset of rooms in a place where the facility is no longer exploding, which sounds great at first. However, the puzzles here are developed in such a way that accidentally creating a paradox is incredibly simple. But first, let's talk about the mechanic of future time travel. The first time machine that you use here is slightly different than the ones we've become familiar with throughout the game, as instead of bringing us exactly to one specific spot in the past, this time machine instead brings us to one specific point in the future, being exactly 10 movements ahead of the normal time machines. When we exit this time machine for the first time, we'll see that this puzzle is already solved, the door is open for us and we're able to go through this normal time machine. However, upon going through the normal time machine, we see that the other rooms are in a completely different state. The puzzle's completely unsolved, and with a strict timer of 10 moves before a past self arrives, we need to solve this puzzle quickly. Luckily, in this first room it isn't a difficult task, as we just need to move this item onto the button and then hide behind the curtain before running to the exit, but in a more complex room there are some problems that would arise. For example, let's say our past self travels to the future and actually sees the future self. Ordinarily you would think this would be a paradox, however luckily enough this isn't a paradox, only a potential paradox. See, our future self standing on this button is required for our past self to get to the normal time machine here. And so, seeing our future self here doesn't necessarily create a paradox, but if we somehow can't get to the button in time here, then our past self wouldn't see us on the button, and only then would a paradox be created. Basically, throughout all these puzzles, our goal would be to make the rooms look exactly like they did when our past self exited this time machine, and although that can make for a few interesting rooms, the only way these puzzles can work is that you'd have to see the solution beforehand, so the mystery of what to do is taken away and now you just have to figure out how to get there. But there are still many interesting ways that this could be implemented here or in other time travel games. Okay, with that over, let's talk about the glaring elephant in the room that I haven't addressed throughout the entire video. So, what do you think of my new channel mascot? I wanted to make one for quite a while now, and believe it or not, I was working on this a lot longer than you might have expected, which is a little sad because it's by no means high quality, but I'm not the greatest at art. Regardless, I hope you all liked this introduction throughout this video, and expect to see a lot more of this little mascot throughout my future videos. And while we're talking about the channel, if you want to support the channel, then you can like, comment, subscribe, do all those good things, and help the Epoch channel to get 10,000 subscribers before the end of the year. And with all that being said, this has been Epoch, your place for everything indie game related, and I really hope I'll see you all in the next one.